What is an executive order? What's up, YouTube fam? Welcome to the Jonathan Dearman Show, the least political show on YouTube. And today I want to talk about executive orders. What are they? How often should they be used? And etc. So an executive order is a signed, written, and published directive from the President of the United States that manages and operates portions of the federal government. Now, Congress does have the power to strike down an executive order by passing a bill that ultimately blocks it. However, the president can then veto that bill, in which case Congress can override the veto with a 2/3 majority vote. So it's kind of a process to block it and to ultimately override the veto if the president tries to veto it, but it is blockable. Now, an executive order comes from kind of reading between the lines in the Constitution. It's not a very clear part of the Constitution, but you can kind of get there by reading in between the lines. Now, every president since 1905 have been cataloged as signing an executive order. However, the amounts vary depending on the president. In chronological order, the last 5 presidents go like this. George Bush signed a total of 166, Bill Clinton 364, George W. Bush 291, Barack Obama 276, and Donald J. Trump 220. However, where it gets a little bit interesting is within the first week of each presidency, here are the numbers of executive orders they signed. George Bush Sr. signed 1, Bill Clinton signed 2, George W. Bush signed 0, Obama 5, Trump 4, and Biden 22. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Biden has signed 22 executive orders in the first week. Now let me jump into a little bit of my opinion on what I think executive orders are for and how often they should be used. First of all, just as an overall general rule, I don't like executive orders. Are there some exceptions? Of course there are. There's almost always exceptions in certain things, but as a general rule, I am not a fan of an executive order, and here's why. What an executive order essentially does is it kind of bypasses Congress. In fact, it does bypass Congress, and the president gets to sign something that goes into effect without having to go through the proper channels. Where it's really meant for is in states of emergency, like if we're in a time of war and quick action needs to be taken, not when the president just doesn't want to have to go through the hassle of dealing with Congress, which is what it's been used for, not just by Biden, but by all presidents in recent history. The reason why I'm not a fan of it, I believe that checks and balances are very important, no matter who's in office. I do not believe the president of the United States should have the power to put things into effect by him and him alone. That's called a dictatorship, right? And so the idea that the president has the power to just start putting things into effect that they feel, I mean, this can be an independent decision that one person feels is important, therefore they can do an executive order. I don't like it. Now, of course, like I said earlier, Congress can pass a bill that blocks that executive order, but then the president can veto it, and ultimately it comes down to Congress needing a 2/3 majority vote to override the veto that the president gives. And unfortunately, because our politics are so partisan that it comes down to party lines, you'll almost rarely ever get a 2/3 majority on anything, because Democrats rarely betray Democrats, Republicans rarely betray Republicans, which means that executive orders are almost like final say, unless there's something so crazy that parties are willing to turn on themselves, which, just as a side note, I always think parties should be willing to turn on themselves if the wrong decision is being made. I think the fact that they're so stuck on party lines is terrible, but it rarely happens. And so what ends up happening is that executive orders almost never get overturned, and it's basically just law that's passed by the president and the president himself. And we are not a dictatorship. We are a democratic republic. And what that means is we have elected representatives to represent us, not just the president, but many representatives through Congress, ultimately through judges that are appointed by those people. The whole point of what this system was designed to do was to avoid anybody having the power of a dictator. And that's what executive orders are often, unfortunately, used, is to dictate what the president wants to do without having to go through the proper channels. Again, one more time, I don't like it. I don't care if it's Biden. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if it's Obama, Bush. Keep going. It doesn't matter. Executive orders, in my opinion, are being totally overused. It should not be how it's done. They should be for emergencies only, and Congress should be involved in these decisions, because we should not have one person making the decisions for the entire country. That's called a monarchy. It's called a dictatorship, and that is not what we are as America. Executive orders are always appreciated by the people that agree with the orders being put into place, right? Sometimes the executive orders will go in the way that you want them to, sometimes they won't, but ultimately this is not how decisions should be made. In my opinion, I believe that it's set up wisely the way that it is set up, and the more checks and balances, often oftentimes the better. There are emergencies, but most executive orders that are being signed are not because of that. It is a little bit concerning to me that Biden has signed 22 in his first week because, again, as a general rule, I don't like them. I don't want them. That's my opinion. I would love to know your guys' opinion in the comments. Number one, do you think executive orders have been overused? Do you think they haven't been overused? Do you not really care? Or does it really bother you that executive orders are being used the way that they do? So with all that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys at the next Jonathan Dierman Show. Peace out.